Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today we're tackling a global paradox that's shaping our future in strange and contradictory ways. You've seen the headlines. A baby bust is upon us. Birth rates are plummeting to historic lows in many countries, sparking fears of aging populations and economic decline. And yet, the total number of people on Earth continues to climb. How can the world be having a baby bust and a baby boom at the same time? This is the modern fertility paradox, a story where two different numbers are telling two vastly different tales. Let's untangle it. The heart of this paradox lies in the difference between a rate and a reality. The number you hear about most is the total fertility rate, or TFR. This is a hypothetical snapshot. It estimates the average number of children a woman would have in her lifetime, based on the current year's birth statistics. It's the metric that has halved globally, from about 5 children per woman in the 1960s to just 2.3 today. For a population to replace itself, it needs a TFR of about 2.1. Many nations are far below that. But the TFR is not the same as the annual number of live births, which is a simple head count of all babies born in a year. This number depends not just on the rate, but on a much more powerful force: population momentum. Think of population momentum like a giant cruise ship. Even after you cut the engines, its sheer inertia will carry it forward for miles. Demographically, a country that had very high birth rates in the past, like the post-war baby boomers, now has a massive generation of people who are in their prime childbearing years. Even if each woman in this large group has fewer children on average, a lower TFR, the sheer number of potential mothers means the total number of babies born can remain very high or even increase. For example, in 2024, the fertility rate in England and Wales hit a record low of 1.41, yet the absolute number of births actually went up slightly. Why? Because a rise in the adult population, a legacy of past growth, outweighed the decline in the rate of childbearing. This momentum is why a population can keep growing for decades even after fertility drops below the replacement level. So why is this global decline in fertility rates happening in the first place? It's not one single reason, but a powerful combination of social and economic shifts, and it's happening almost everywhere. Perhaps the single most important driver is the empowerment of women through education and economic independence. As women gain more access to higher education and careers, they tend to delay marriage and childbirth. From an economic perspective, the opportunity cost of having children, meaning the lost income and career progression, becomes significantly higher for an educated woman in the workforce. More importantly, this empowerment gives women greater control over their own reproductive decisions. But it's not just about economics. We're also living through a profound cultural shift that demographers call the second demographic transition. This is a move away from traditional, survival-focused values towards an emphasis on individual autonomy and self-fulfillment. In this new world, marriage is no longer seen as a prerequisite for children, and choosing a child-free life is becoming more socially acceptable. The decision to have a child is less of a societal duty and more of a personal choice, weighed against other life goals like travel, career development, and personal projects. Then there's the direct financial pressure. The cost of raising a child has skyrocketed, especially in developed countries. Housing, education, and quality childcare are incredibly expensive, placing a huge burden on potential parents. This is compounded by a general sense of uncertainty about the future. Concerns about climate change, political instability, and economic precarity can create a kind of procreative anxiety, making people hesitant to bring children into a world they see as full of challenges. This dual reality, falling rates in a world with population momentum, has divided the world into two camps, each facing a very different set of problems. First, you have the aging world, typically in Europe, North America, and East Asia. These countries have had low fertility for decades, and the consequences are starting to hit hard. They face shrinking workforces, which can stifle economic growth and innovation. This leads to what some economists call stranded capital, where investments are less viable without enough workers. To cope, these nations are turning more and more to automation and robotics. An aging population also puts immense strain on public finances. With fewer working-age taxpayers and more retirees, social security and pension systems are thrown out of balance. At the same time, healthcare costs soar because older populations naturally require more medical care. Governments are left with unpopular choices: raise taxes, cut benefits, or increase the retirement age. On the other side of the coin, you have the youthful world, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa and parts of South Asia. These countries are still riding the wave of population momentum. While their fertility rates are also falling, they remain high, and their large youth populations ensure continued growth for years to come. Their challenge is a race against time. They must provide education, healthcare, and jobs for an ever-expanding young population. Failure can lead to unemployment, poverty, and social unrest. However, this youthful structure also holds incredible promise. If a country can successfully lower its fertility rate while investing heavily in the health and education of its young people, it can trigger a, quote, demographic dividend. This is a golden window of opportunity where the working-age population is larger than the dependent population of children and seniors. This frees up resources for economic development and was a key factor in the success of the East Asian tiger economies. Faced with the prospect of aging and decline, many governments have tried to engineer a baby boom with so-called pro-natalist policies. The results have been very telling. Some countries have focused on directly paying people to have children. South Korea, for example, has spent over $280 billion on such schemes. Hungary offers huge tax breaks and loans to new parents. But these cash handouts have largely failed to produce any sustained increase in fertility. Research shows that one-off payments often just change the timing of births. Couples who already wanted kids just have them sooner to get the bonus, but they don't increase the total number of children a family has. In contrast, countries like France and Sweden have seen more stable results, although still below the replacement level. Their approach is different. They focus on comprehensive support systems, generous paid parental leave for both parents, heavily subsidized high-quality childcare, and tax systems that favor families. The key here is not just giving cash, but reducing the conflict between work and family life. These policies make it easier for both parents to build a career while raising children. The ultimate lesson from these global experiments is that there's no magic bullet. You can't simply reverse a trend that's rooted in deep economic and cultural changes. China's dramatic policy reversal from a one-child to a three-child policy failed to create a baby boom, proving that decades of population control have fundamentally reshaped family norms. Of course, no discussion about population is complete without talking about the planet. For decades, a growing human population has been linked to climate change and resource depletion. From this perspective, falling fertility rates might seem like a welcome development, but the relationship isn't that simple. The environmental impact of humanity is a product of not just the number of people, but also our consumption patterns. Think of the equation: impact equals population times affluence times technology. The stark reality is that the wealthiest 10% of the global population is responsible for nearly half of all consumption-based carbon emissions. The carbon footprint of a child born in a high-income country is many times larger than that of a child born in a low-income, high-fertility nation. This means focusing on overpopulation in the global south is a distraction from the real, urgent problem: overconsumption in the global north. So what does this all mean for our future? The modern fertility paradox shows us a world undergoing a massive transformation. We're not facing a simple crisis of too many or too few babies. Instead, we're witnessing a complex realignment of family, economics, and our relationship with the planet. In many ways, the story of falling birth rates is a story of success. It reflects rising education, greater empowerment for women, and better health. The challenge is to manage the consequences. Aging societies must find ways to stay dynamic, perhaps through immigration and technology. Youthful societies need investment to unlock their demographic dividend. Ultimately, the paradox forces us to ask a fundamental question: is the goal to simply have more people, or to improve the quality of life for everyone? The evidence suggests that the most effective pro-fertility policies are actually pro-family policies, those that reduce the pressure on parents, promote gender equality, and create a society where raising the next generation is seen as a shared joy, not an individual burden. We are moving toward a new demographic equilibrium. Navigating it requires looking beyond the scary headlines and embracing a more nuanced understanding of what truly shapes our world. Thanks for listening to G Fun Facts Online.